Roy Wilkins, Mid-Manhattan branch, proudly celebrates Black History Month.
I've known this gentleman for over 20 years, and he is the chairperson of the Social Action Commission at Canaan Baptist Church. His topic is going to be the civil rights movement and its impact upon today's society. I bring to the podium Mr. Howard Inman.
Thank you. And before I begin, where's the young lady that had the BlackBerry? You notice that she's able to take notes and read from her BlackBerry? The young person who just left had a half of what I have. I have an 8.5 by 11. I couldn't find any 5 index cards. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here. Before I begin, let me say the NAACP is home. I spent a lot of years as the chair of the Political Action Commission of the New York branch NAACP. I'm a member here at the Mid-Manhattan branch. The NAACP is a place where I learned a lot of the stuff that I do, and when I'm with you, I'm at home. I want to begin by saying, this is what I do, civil rights. This is what I do, resist. This is what I remember, and I love to talk about. So somebody, let me know when 20 minutes is up. I want to thank President Wheaton and the officers and members of the NAACP for allowing me to be here, and especially to Yolanda Payne and the Black History Month Committee. I'm really happy to be a part of here. My assignment is to talk about the impact of the civil rights movement today. There's much to celebrate. There's much to talk about. So in a few minutes, I'm trying to impact you with saying that the civil rights movement was just part of the song, all right? I have a way of framing when I talk about our history. One, I think there's 3 distinct periods that we have gone through, 2 distinct periods that we've gone through, and 1 that we're working through right now. The very first is physical liberation, slavery, right? When I read, and I love to read about the subject of us, you know, because we have an identity problem as a people. That's what a lot of this is about, our identity problem. Because during slavery, to make a slave, there's a book called The Making of a Slave, you got to take away from the personhood their identity. Hence our last names. Hence our inability to speak any language that's conducive of where we came from. And also importantly is Ron Karenga in that Kwanzaa, right? Kwanzaa was an attempt to attach us to some kind of identity. Slavery and the physical liberation that we went through stripped us of that, and we came out of it with the country pulling 3 distinct amendments together, 13th, 14th, and 15th, to end slavery and to say you got a right to vote, and also anybody who's born in this country, and they meant us when they talked about that, is a citizen, but now it's used for other means. So that's one distinct period. And I want to say here and now that there's enough documented evidence to say that it wasn't Abraham Lincoln who freed the slaves. It was the slaves that rebelled and protested and advocated for his own freedom. No one can free you. We are free because the slaves decided that they have had enough. And there's a Dr. Herbert Amphitheater, and I hope I'm saying that word right, Tanya. His name, he wrote a book called Slave Rebellion. He documents this. You should read that. And the Atlantic Slave Trade is another book to talk about, in the Middle Passage, Africans, us, our forebears, decided it was better to tread the blue waters of the Atlantic or the teeth of the shark to be free. Stage 1. And for 100 years, those 13th and 14th and 15th Amendments weren't in existence. Nothing was happening, right? So one of the wonderful things that I want to celebrate is the spirit of man. The thing that the religious person, Dr. Johnson, talk about all the time. What we sing about now, spiritual, right? There is something inside of it. It could be the God thing, the human spark that resists this type of oppression, right? So let me just talk a little bit about what I experienced as a young man. Someone, I think it was our president, said there's no one here who's old enough to remember the civil rights. Well, I do. There's no one here that was when segregation was school, all of my life, I went to a segregated school. I'm from South Carolina, Atlanta, South Carolina, LATTA, and I remember driving to Marion to go to the military hospital for my grandfather. And on the center post in the middle of town, there's a pole that says, Black World War II veterans and white. That's gone today. In Fayetteville, North Carolina, on 301, the old 301, Dr. Johnson, there was a big sign that says, no niggers and Jews allowed. Today, that's gone. And what am I speaking to? What's the impact of the Civil Rights Movement? And also, in my hometown, there used to be a doctor's office. One door was for black, the front door was for whites. That's gone today as well. When I grew up, the insurance man came to our house. I'm telling you the story so I can tell you what the impact of the Civil Rights Movement was, right? The insurance man would come to the house to sell insurance, right? And he called my grandmother, Aunt Mickey. And I'm a young boy, and I said, Grandmother, I didn't know the insurance man was your uncle. Now, grandmother was, and I said she's an angel. She said to me, oh, Doug, don't ever call me Doug, my middle name is Douglas. But she said, oh, Doug, he was just trying to be nice. But I grew up and read about that. He wasn't trying to be nice. He was belittling her. And I remember distinctly the older man in my grandfather's generation in that relationship, how it made them walk, stooped over, and they would whisper around whites, and they were always very deferential, right? So what did the Civil Rights Movement do? Changed all of that. All right? So the second phase of what I call the Civil Rights Movement is about access. A lot of people is under mistaken belief that the 13 years of Martin King, from Montgomery to Memphis, did it all. I'm saying to you that the Martin Luther King era was revolutionary. It did. It changed every aspect of American life. Martin Luther King era, the Civil Rights Movement, the NAACP, Thurgood Marshall, transformed this nation. All right? But it only gave us access. We have a right to go to a hotel. We have the right to eat in an establishment. We have a right to enter a school. But do you think we're there yet? That's phase 2, right? So I won't rehearse all the wonderful stories that we celebrate, but we should read them and talk about them. I want to say to you that the movement, the resistance, is still in motion. We're still doing this thing. We still have a charge that we have to bear. When I was younger, my political mentor said, you know, Howard, you have a time when you have to hold up your corner of the world. The young people that was here, you know, we can celebrate, like Hazel Lucas from Montgomery, I know, and others of us who have been around the Civil Rights Movement. We've done some, but there's more to do. But if you're a young person, don't think that you don't have a tough part of the world to hold up for yourself as well. All right? The Black History Month Committee asked me, what is the impact of the Civil Rights Movement? I submit to you that it was the most transformative things that I've experienced. Here's some of the things here's some of the impact. The 1964 Civil Rights Bill removed racial barriers for educational opportunities when you go into school. Removed the gender barriers to educational opportunities and work. Women, prior to the Civil Rights Movement, did not have the opportunities they have today, and they should be thankful for the Civil Rights Movement. A lot of the things that we take for granted were born out of the Civil Rights Movement. Age discrimination. I'm really down with that now, you know what I mean? It gave us the 1965 Voting Rights Act, the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Service Act. Who remember what was involved in that? Today we have more diversity. I heard someone talk about diversity in our nation because of this, but it came out of the Civil Rights Movement. Cesar Chavez got his, if you read any stuff from him, got his start imitating Martin Luther King, right? In 1968, he gave us the Fair Housing Act. Supposedly, we can rent and buy any house that we want to, but we know there's some stuff with that. But you know what he gave us? Who was the president? Barack Hussein Obama. That's the product of the Civil Rights Movement. And he was fortuitous enough to have Joseph Lowery at his inauguration just to say thank you. He should be saying thank you, because it was the Civil Rights Movement that did that. For me, the greatest impact of the Civil Rights Movement was on you and me. The little story that I told you about the humiliation of segregation and all that stuff that went around with slavery and all that stuff. I am so glad that I am that age because I got to feel what it was like to go from segregation to a form of access and liberation that I've never known before. I was a very, what is that song that James Brown used to say it loud? I'm black and I'm proud. Felt it all the time, and you should feel that too. But with that is an obligation to those people who died getting us there, you know what I mean? The biggest transformation that the civil rights made was on our personhood. As Martin King said, when they write the history of the civil rights era, they will say that it was an opportunity where people stood up. We stood up straight as a people, and we fought for our own freedom. And he said, no man can ride your back when you're standing up straight. And that's the greatest legacy of the civil rights movement. The third and final thing is where I am right, and I can put this down because I don't need my BlackBerry or notes. If I said liberation is the first stage, physical freedom, access was what Martin King and all of the civil rights movements and the laws that was passed was about access. We have a right to be. We have a right to do. Where are we now? I heard you talking about Walden High School. From access to success. We need to win at this thing, right? Our children have access to school, but they're failing in school. There are more blacks going to school, but there are more blacks failing school, right? So 21st century, where's the young lady? Yeah. Your challenge. The 21st century is going to be about success. How do we win? We can have great, ceremonial celebrations about what was, what we used to be. And I can feel good about my hometown. And when I go there now, my grandmother said before she passed away, Doug, don't call me Doug. She said, after the Civil Rights Bill, things had changed, she said, Doug, white people are so nice to you nowadays. You think they up to something? I said, Grandma, maybe they are up to something. But the point being is that the Civil Rights Movement changed America. The women's movement, the lesbian movement. The Hispanics are now doing the same techniques that we did to get their freedom, right? Or get their expanded access. The impact of the Civil Rights Movement is one that we will write about, talk about, but what we need to celebrate is the energy of it. One of the things, I was at NYU taking a class, and there was this young white man who was a member, as it told me later, part of, what is that organization that was blowing up the federal building? Weatherman Group, because he was reading Abby Hoffman steal this book. And I just thought it was interesting. I said, that's an interesting guy. I thought Abby Hoffman was an interesting guy from Harvard to do the things that he did. He said, yeah. I said, but this was the late 70s or early 80s. And he said, I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm taking a course, man. I got married. I'm trying to do something to better myself, right? I said, after the anti-war movement, civil rights and King was dead, it's really kind of boring. He said, man, my life is anticlimactic after the movement. I feel that too. I try to tell my daughters about the energy, how excited it was to be black in the civil rights movement. If I could do anything, I would take from that which I have inside and give it to you, to tell you that we can. Because one of the things that Martin King, Malcolm, Whitney, Roy Wilkins, all of those who did for us, SNCC did for us, is told us that we could. We need to be serious. When I was in the NAACP, I was young at that time too. And they said, we want you to start the young people's, the youth, what is it called, youth council now? Youth council, you're part of the youth council. I said, I can't do that. I had just come back from the Air Force and I said, I am a full-grown man. The issues of black life and the point that we said, I will take the political action committee. And for 7 years I took that and led that. We have a challenge. Education, I don't believe, and please allow me to be arbitrary with this, I don't believe that we can change it from the inside. I am working with a young lady in Brooklyn who started a school with high school students, but she said, the problem, Howard, is farther than that. You need to go back to the middle school and start, even earlier maybe, to start working with that, right? And it said, you need to step back and organize, as a young brother did in Albany, a parents' organization that's big enough and powerful enough to move the city. You want to stop the schools from closing? Then make the results different. And the only way you can make the results different is you and I have to get in. For the last two school years, I've been involved in a school in the Bronx, Evander High School. You know Evander High School?
Yes.
But I've been journaling every day. Because the things that we assume, this school has an A rating, the things that we assume that are working are not necessarily working. The only way we change it is the way that the civil rights movement changed it. King stepped out of it. And this is not a condemnation of the NAACP, but the Atlanta branch offered him the chapter, the president. But he said, if you read his book, I couldn't do that because the NAACP was too part of what the system is. I need to create something that had the power and the freedom to work. We in the 21st century need to have the freedom to work. We need to do something about our education because it's a crime what's happening to our young people. The impact of the civil rights movement is you and me, and we're ready to go.
All right.
Thank you, Doug. Howard. Thank you for that passionate journey through the civil rights movement.